Hi everybody, it's Ren here. Welcome to my room, guys. Happy Wednesday. What are the types that are the most likely to misunderstand the INFJ, and vice versa, most likely to be misunderstood by INFJs? In other words, this comes down to what are the types whose mental world and whose embodied world presents much less than optimal potential for overlap with the INFJ counterparts, and therefore might not even get the chance to get the potential of a nurturing friendship or relationship fulfilled. Now, if you want to hear a bit more about this, my thoughts on this, stick to me. We'll discuss that for a few minutes. Do not forget that if you want to have real in-depth understanding of the INFJ, you can get my book, The Ecstatic Soul. Check the link below. And the reviews, it's a must read if you're into that kind of stuff. You can also get my book, The Infinite Castle, which is the novel. Support the channel. You also have the links below. It's a nice product. And rumor has it main characters in INFJ. And fictional exploration of INFJ experience is one way that I could market it. Okay. Listen. I figured that if we are going to make a statement about the types that are most likely to misunderstand INFJs and be misunderstood by INFJs, if we want to make a statement, we better limit the number of those types. And so I've decided to limit those types to 2. And of course, I would be curious, eager to hear your own contributions. When you contribute your possibly alternative 2 types, or 1 type if you just want to focus on one, please do share your justification, your reasoning. That would be very interesting. My perspective here is probably going to be partial, but can that ever really be avoided? I do not think so. I think it's the ESTJ and the ESFP. Or the ESFP or the ESTJ, in no particular order. When I was thinking about it, the ESFP came to mind first, but really you can add the ESTJ. That's really not a problem at all. So now for my reasoning. So I wanted to think of a type that was oriented toward extroversion, first of all, because if anything, an introvert, even if it might not be a very compatible introvert at first sight, such as an ISTJ or an ISFP, well, first of all, they will at least have, almost by nature, a certain respect for what's going on internally in yourself, and they will have a respect for not being able to completely understand it. They'll know that it's something that really is there. They may not understand it because it belongs to your introverted world. So there will be this level of openness that comes with it. And do not be misguided to think that ISTJs are not going to be open and tolerant in that respect. I've had more ISTJ friends than I've had ISFP friends. And really, I've come to believe that this is linked to a PI kind of brotherhood in some way. ISTJs, after all, are SI leads, so they really have an intricate understanding, or a life understanding of what it means to perceive the world prior to anything else through introverted perception. It's true that in the way that they are and the way that they behave, ISTJs are very different from INFJs, but there is this PI connection there. And sometimes ISTJs can be very PI heavy and not particularly TE heavy. Those ISTJs are not very commonly discussed. My wife has a sister who could well be ISTJ, and she's very much SIFI. In any case, returning to the question of the ESFP and the ESTJ, I think that the conflict between a high TE and the INFJ tends to recur all the time, simply because high TE is so much about externalizing logic and making the world coherent according to impartial principles, and not just impartial principles, but principles that do not ultimately care about meaning. Meaning can be found through other functions for this type, but for such as an ESTJ type. But the primary principle of organization doesn't care about meaning, whereas INFJs tend to be preternaturally obsessed with meaning. Added to that, the fact that compared to ENTJs, well, there's no opportunity here for a deep NI connection. ENTJs, though they are T dominants, and I would not include in the most likely to understand INFJs, they will often experience some kind of curiosity, which is linked to the aspiration that an auxiliary function has in relation to a dominant. So you won't be surprised if you actually do become friends with an ENTJ, although there will certainly be areas that do not overlap. So much for the ESTJ. Now for the ESFP, an interesting question that someone might ask is, why not go for the ENFP if you're going to go for an extroverted lead? And a lead with extroverted perception, not just extroverted lead. It's obvious, for example, that someone who leads with extroverted feeling is not going to be the most likely to misunderstand an INFJ. Although an ENFJ is more likely to understand you than an ESFJ, obviously. This is all quite logical. Why ESFP over ENFP? Someone could say, legitimately, well, look, at least the ESFP has functions in common with the INFJ, don't they? I mean, they have SE and NI in common with the INFJ. The ENFP has 0 functions in common with the INFJ. Now, this is true, and to some extent, I'm not quite sure about the theoretical explanation you could give for why it seems obvious that ESFPs are less likely to understand an INFJ and be understood by an INFJ than ENFPs are. In fact, a common trope in our communities is that ENFPs are very suited to understanding the INFJ. Now, as far as what I believe, I used to believe this. I now believe that it's very easy, or it's quite natural for ENFPs to get on with INFJs at some level. To fully understand them, I think ENFPs are better suited to fully understanding INTJs, and that this has to do with the FI connection here. If you like, the way that NE interacts with NI is interesting. You also have to keep in mind that INFJs often have pretty undeveloped SE, and it's more the exception than the norm for an INFJ to have that kind of unintegrated infantile kind of SE. When it is confronted with the very upfront and I almost want to say invasive SE of ESFPs, I think that can be often a source of overwhelm for INFJs. Makes it hard to quite understand. There just seems to be, if you like, because SE inferior for INFJs tend to produce a devaluation of the external world, there is a distrust of SE, which is often more pronounced than in those types that do not have SE as a function. It's because the INFJ has SE but devalues it. It's almost as if they were ashamed of it or try to rationalize its way. So when they're confronted with somebody who's like completely like a fish in the sea in SE, this tends to produce a rejection. I think the ESFP is not going to be that conscious or care so much about rejecting NI or something, but it doesn't seem likely that they are the type that's most likely to show patience toward the rambling, the rambling expressions of like that sort of result from expressions of introverted intuition. They're just not likely to quite know what it all means or what the point is. With ESTPs, well, you'll have, if the ESTP has FE well integrated, you'll at least have that FE connection, you see. For ENFPs, conversely, it seems that NE just has this attraction to NI, possibly even more than NI has an attraction to NE. It's again something that I'm empirically observing. I don't know if I could theorize it to a satisfactory degree at this stage. But ENFPs, you know, just want to figure out what's going on with this NI. It has to do with their innate curiosity, and clearly there is a link between different types of intuition here, which are not going in the same direction, but are still, you know, modes of intuition. And NE liberates NI deepens NE, you could say, and the relationship, at least at this level, is win-win, and explains why ENFPs work so well, including in relationships with INTJs, but they also get on well with ENFPs. So I would still, at the end of the day, name ESFP and ESTJ as the two types most likely to misunderstand INFJs, and the reverse. Not to say there's no potential there, but you need to get past a few hurdles before you can actually fully exploit it. Let me know in the comments what your thoughts are, and share your, you know, suggested types, especially if they differ. See you soon, guys. Bye-bye.